I bet you think the lead investigator into the January 6th investigation for the House of Representatives knows everything there is to know about what happened that day. I bet you think that investigator wouldn't lie and exaggerate what really happened. I bet that you're wrong about that. But he got confronted by an amazing citizen journalist, and I want you to see the fireworks, and you'll see it coming up in just a second. Plus, JD Vance, boy, it's great to have a vice president who can put a sentence together. We're 1 week away from him becoming officially the vice president, and you'll see what he had to say yesterday on the Sunday news shows. Also, Gavin Newsom's in the news right now, and we're going to talk about what he's doing in what I think is the final gesture of his about to be over political career after these horrible fires in California. But even more importantly, you need to see this flashback to when Adam Carolla absolutely destroyed him and exposed him for the moronic hypocrite socialist that he is. And it's beautiful. And Adam Carolla deserves some attention for it. Oh, and Michael Cohen literally begging Joe Biden for a pardon. Treat me like your son, Joe. Treat me like Hunter. It's glorious. And it's all coming up right now. We're brought to you by Birch Gold. My name's Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry. For watching. I always do that. I clip in right when the music's still playing. Thanks for watching our ever-growing live stream and being a part of, most importantly, our ever-growing live community right now. As all of you are joining us and participating in our chat, we love it. We love it. And boy, the comments were out of control over the weekend. You guys are awesome. You guys are the best. And please join the chat right now. Start engaging with one another. You guys are part of our family and part of our community here every single day. And you mean the world to us. And the one thing we ask in return, of course, is some likes. Just give us some likes right now, because then that will increase our audience as we speak live on YouTube, as people are looking for great, engaging, intelligent, and fun content right now at noon Eastern time. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Increased tariffs on our trade partners. They're coming, man. Tax cuts and regulation changes. Well, I hope they're coming. Learn why gold is a viable diversification tactic now more than ever. That's right. All of the things that the Trump administration is about to implement economically is going to affect your pocketbook, your long-term plans, and gold has got to be a part of that. Birch Gold, the only company I endorse, they're releasing their ultimate guide for gold in the Trump era. And there's a foreword of that book written by Donald Trump Jr. Get your free copy right now, along with Birch Gold's free information kit on gold. All you got to do is text my name, Larry, Larry, easiest name in the world, to 989898. Larry, text that to 989898. The facts don't change regardless of who the president is. Our national debt going through the roof. The interest payments on the national debt going through the roof. Gold is still your hedge against a weakened dollar. And Birch Gold, still the company I recommend to help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold, and not one penny out of pocket for you. So text my name, Larry, to 989898. Get your free copy of the ultimate guide for gold in the Trump era. There's no obligation, only information. Once again, that's my name. Text Larry, Larry, to 989898. Do it now. So the lead investigator for the January 6th committee, you know that committee where the Republicans were Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney. Yeah, it was a complete and total setup. It was a made-for-television production meant to end Donald Trump's career. Boy, that worked out, didn't it? Well, the lead investigator has a book that he's selling, and he was doing one of these DC book signing open forums in Washington. It's at this up Northwest DC Chevy Chase book shop called Politics and Prose. You'll remember, I've talked to you about this before. This is where Jamie Raskin was saying, we've got to suspend the Constitution and say that Donald Trump is not eligible to be president. Yeah, that same bookshop. He was there being interviewed by Jonathan Karl of ABC News. What he wasn't expecting was that in the middle of this liberal bastion, this Democrat fortress, one guy, one independent journalist would come up and confront him with the truth about January 6th. Watch what happens. Oop.
Coming in from the back.
How you doing? So I just want to follow up on something you said earlier. You said there's no equivalence between the BLM protests and the January 6th riots. So my question is, like, how can you say aside from all the property damage and the burned homes, how can you see the violence was worse at the Capitol compared to BLM protests when many people were killed in the BLM/Antifa protests, but the protesters didn't kill anybody on January 6th? And just one short follow-up question, if I may. You mentioned in the book that the issue with misinformation on social media, which everyone would agree is an issue. Are you concerned about misinformation from sources like the local paper of note, the Washington Post, which did give everyone the false impression that the protesters had killed somebody on January 6th. He died the following day of natural causes. The Post did make that correction many months later, but most people didn't get that update. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Now, you're going to hear the answer, but already I love this guy, and I want to give as many props as humanly possible to him. His name is Matt Orfalea. That's spelled Orfalea. And Matt, I'm really sorry if I mispronounced that, but obviously, as you can see from the bug there, orf.report is a place where you can go for all of his content. He has a YouTube channel. Here's the thing about Matt. I have no idea what his politics are. For all I know, he could be a Bernie Sanders supporting left-wing liberal. I don't care. He asked a question based on fact. And by the way, these guys, both of them, this lead investigator lawyer guy who was Liz Cheney's and Nancy Pelosi's hatchet man, and Jonathan Karl, who looks like he's never heard this information before about Officer Sicknick not dying due to anything that happened on January 6th, but he died from a stroke in natural causes. That's what the medical examiner in Washington, D.C. determined. They look like they've never heard this information before. And one other thing about this guy, the lead investigator, that's shocking him right now, he's shocked that anyone in that bookstore actually read his book. See, here's a little dirty secret about Washington, D.C. When you're politically connected like this guy, you get a big advance from the publishing house. They love paying for liberal writers to write liberal things because they know the liberals in Washington will buy the book just so they can have it on their shelf or on their book table, their coffee table when people come over to visit. They say, "Oh, are you reading that? Oh, yes, it's really important. It's really strong." Nobody actually ever reads these things. This guy read it, and now he's holding him accountable for his lies. So let's see what the answer is to that very important question. Why did you say that there's no comparison with BLM, considering people died at the BLM riots and no one died as a result of January 6th? I mean, of course, except for the protesters who died. All right, let's get to it.
Okay, thank you for the question.
I'm not concerned about misinformation from the Washington Post. I generally trust the Washington Post and other credible sources of information. There were people who died as a direct result of their involvement in protecting the Capitol. So that's not misinformation. And I don't mean to suggest on the BLM protests in the summer of 2020 that they weren't serious, that they weren't worthy of a strong response, that people shouldn't have been held accountable. They absolutely were. My point is that they were just sort of fundamentally different than an attack on the seat of government. They're just a fundamentally different dynamic.
I'm really curious, like, how do you think that one is worse, violence by somebody? And I am curious, who, like, you say you trust everything in the Washington Post, and then you also say Officer Sicknick was killed associated to something that happened during the riot. But the Post itself followed up much later and said he died of natural causes.
No, Brian, the medical examiner found that Officer Sicknick died as a result of exposure to the chemical agents and the stress of defending the Capitol, exacerbating a pre-existing condition. That's a legal conclusion that I trust, that the Washington Post didn't make up.
That's just not true, as you can see the clips that Matt has put on here. And Mr. Heafy here, the lead investigator, continues to promulgate this lie. And you hear it all the time. John Karl, by the way, he's like, what, the chief Washington correspondent or politics editor for ABC News. He doesn't know the truth here either. He doesn't know the facts. But as you can see, even here from the Washington Post, Francisco Diaz, the medical examiner, said the autopsy found no evidence that the 42-year-old officer suffered an allergic reaction to chemical irritants. No evidence of internal or external injuries. He died of a stroke. It's tragic. It's horrible for him and for his family. He was 42 years old. That's bad. Stop using his death as a political weapon and stop lying about it for your own political purposes. And again, this is the lead investigator for the January 6th committee in the House of Representatives.
No, say the Washington Post said otherwise. No.
Okay, I think our time for questions is done. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, I really appreciate you coming out.
Yeah, we really appreciate that. Our time for questions are done now because you actually asked a tough one. He was the last one. By the way, you noticed at the beginning, Jonathan Carolla said, yeah, you way back in the room. And that ended up being the last question. Most important part of the exchange. We're going to watch it one more time.
You say you trust everything in the Washington Post, and then you also say Officer Sicknick was killed associated to something that happened during the riot. But the Post itself followed up much later and said he died of natural causes.
No, Brian, the medical examiner found that Officer Sicknick died as a result of exposure to the chemical agents and the stress of defending the Capitol, exacerbating a pre-existing condition. That's a legal conclusion that I trust, that the Washington Post didn't make up.
No, say the Washington Post said otherwise. No.
Okay, I think our time for questions is done.
Yeah, they don't want to hear the follow-up, but let's just be clear here because it's the most important part. Again, man's name is Tim Heaphy. He was the lead investigator hired by Nancy Pelosi, Liz Cheney to produce the entire January 6th investigation. You tell me this thing doesn't need to be investigated by, well, the Republicans in the House were already investigating through Congressman Loudermilk of Georgia. You tell me that there doesn't need to be a special investigator into these guys and the lies that they put forth and continue to put forth. This is what he just said. The medical examiner found that Officer Sicknick died as a result of exposure to the chemical agents and the stress of defending the Capitol. The Washington Post itself said that the medical examiner said the autopsy found no evidence the officer suffered an allergic reaction to chemical irritants, which Diaz said would have caused Sicknick's throat to quickly seize. Diaz also said there was no evidence of internal or external injuries. It's awful that this man died. It's terrible. You know what's even worse? Lying about his death and using it for a political weapon against innocent people, which is exactly what we see, not just those innocent people who have been arrested and incarcerated and bankrupted, over 1,000 of them because they were there on January 6th, but also every single Trump supporter, every single Trump voter, every single politician who aligns themselves with Trump is now slandered with this scarlet letter that you're supporting an insurrectionist and somebody died because of January 6th. January 6th was a terrible day. Don't make it worse by lying about it. Later, during the book signing, again, this guy, Matt Orfalea, Orfalea, you're a hero, dude. And again, I don't even know what your politics are. It doesn't matter to me. You care about the truth. And you are courageous enough to go right up to him with your camera during the book signing and continue this very important conversation.
So the Post did say it was natural causes. When did they learn and how did we learn that it was related?
The medical examiner found that Sicknick's injuries were related to his service.
Is it a medical examiner for who?
For whomever did the autopsy.
Okay.
I believe it was the DC.
And as far as you said, you're not concerned about misinformation from the Washington Post. What about
Not on this topic, no.
Okay, but other topics like the Iraq War and all that, is that
Kind of beyond my scope.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Have a great.
All right. So he continues to repeat the lie over and over and over again. By the way, one other noteworthy item. If you go to this bookstore, Politics and a Prose, again, I've tried to paint the picture as to what this place is like and who goes there. That's why they were shocked to get a challenging question from somebody who actually just knows the facts about these things. Here's some of the items you can buy while you're there. You can get a real life Dr. Fauci action figure, complete with white lab coat, which, by the way, is something I don't think Fauci has worn in about 40 years because, it doesn't match the shoes and the belt. And even better, your Dr. Anthony Fauci socks. I wonder if these are on the clearance rack when you go to Politics and Prose. Also, you can get your Kamala hats done in the color and font of Brat Summer. Oh, remember Brat Summer? That was a more innocent time, wasn't it? And you can get your purple non-binary hat, which is something. You can also get your, what are those finger puppets? Kamala Harris finger puppets to entertain your little baby. You get your it looks like a tea cozy or oh no, that's an oven mitt. The American dream belongs to all of us, Kamala Harris oven mitt, and your Harris Waltz magnets for your refrigerator, because that'll kill your appetite if you're going to eat something. Again, I hope that these are all on the clearance rack there at Politics and Prose. Oh, a Dr. Fauci tote bag is also something everybody needs to complete the set. Good job, Matt Orfalea. Beautiful work and incredibly revealing and important for everybody to see exactly. Don't take a back seat to any of these people who claim that they have the moral high ground on the actual events of January 6th, which again, I will admit, it was a horrible day. I was angry. I'm still angry about what happened on January 6th, but it doesn't need to be made worse by people lying and harming innocent people and frankly, abusing the memory of this Capitol Hill police officer, Officer Sicknick, who died tragically from a stroke days after the events of January 6th. And again, as noted and repeated, based on the DC medical examiner's own report, was not related in any way whatsoever to the events of January 6th, despite what every single member of the propagandist corporate media wants to continue to repeat. And I'm sure they will on Inauguration Day, 1 week from today, as President Trump is sworn in. I assure you, I guarantee you that Mr. Tapper and Mr. Stephanopoulos and Ms. O'Donnell and all of them in between will all say, isn't it ironic that here he is standing on the steps of the very building that was under assault just 4 years ago, where Officer Brian Sicknick died as a result of that. And it's all a lie. It's all a lie, and they should be ashamed of themselves. All right, I need to get me one of the Kevin. If you're worried about what I should get for what you should get me for my birthday coming up, can you give me some of those Fauci socks?
I'll put it on the list.
You know what? We can use some of the Big Mac funds from the super chats for some Fauci socks. No, actually, we will not do that. I promise you, we're not going to enrich anybody who's making Fauci socks. I promise you. All right. JD Vance, 1 week from now, will be sworn in as the Vice President of the United States. And he's not an Ohio Senator anymore. He had to resign his office. So I think right now he's sort of a man without a country. He's got some free time on his hand. He's moving from Alexandria across the Potomac to the Naval Observatory as soon as Kamala gets out of there and they fumigate the place because Lord knows, right? So with some of his extra time, he appeared on Fox News Sunday with Shannon Bream yesterday. And boy, oh boy, isn't it nice to have a man who's going to be vice president actually capable of putting a couple of sentences together. But more than that, he confronted some of the issues and some of the lies and some of the various political threads that are being pulled right now in Washington, D.C. to try to begin the resistance to Trump 2.0. We will start here with immigration and the deportation question.
Egregious things that you cite that I would think all Americans are against.
Sure.
That's a small fraction of the millions of people who are here who have built lives. Many of them have been here for decades.
So you do have hundreds of thousands, maybe even 1 million people who, in addition to crossing into the border illegally, have also committed some measure of violent crime. So it's actually a very large number of people, Shannon. And the point is that if you want to fix the overall border crisis, you have to engage in law enforcement. We can't buy into this lie, really, from the extreme left, because I agree with you. Most Americans want common sense border enforcement. We can't buy into this lie that law enforcement at the American southern border is somehow not compassionate to families who want to cross illegally. Our number one responsibility is compassion to our fellow Americans, and that starts with enforcing the southern border. You cannot have a country of law and order, of stability, of basic good governance unless you get control of what Biden has left us at the American southern.
All right. So very well said, number one, by JD Vance, number one. Number two, love Shannon Bream. I do. But I what I hate is conventional wisdom in Washington, D.C. And this has just become this thing that's been adopted by the smart set in Washington that they keep repeating. It's like, well, you know, it's a very small minority of people who have come to this country illegally who have actually committed further heinous crimes. Most of them have built their families and they want to be contributing members of society. All right. Number one, 10% of the people, if it's 10% of the people who have come into this country illegally, that's over 1 million people. And by the way, we don't know. We don't know how many. You know how many people commit felonious crimes in California, shoplifting, et cetera, that just don't go enforced because of the prosecutors that Democrats have championed with all their George Soros dollars? There is a climate and culture of criminality that has infested some of the major urban centers in this country. And they also happen to be major areas where huge numbers of illegal immigrants have all been brought to stay as so-called refugees seeking asylum. I believe it was the mayor of New York, a Democrat, who said right now they could deport 60,000 people from that city. Back where I come from, 60,000 people, that's a lot. That's a lot of people that could, fill the biggest baseball stadium in America. And if they're all here criminally and they continue to break the law, how about we deport them? And how about we don't start repeating this old tired yarn that they came here? Oh, sure, they broke our immigration laws, but they're really just here to build a home and family. It's interesting. Why is this the only law that people in Washington, D.C. try to equivocate in such a way? Can you imagine? Oh, sure, he hasn't paid his taxes in 30 years. But, he's a successful businessman and he's got a lot of children and he's established a home here. And by the way, all that money that he didn't pay in taxes, he's been buying a lot of stuff, and that's money that contributes to a thriving economy. It's not like he broke any other law. It's funny how tax laws are the things that there's no tolerance for in Washington, D.C., but pretty much every other law they did. Listen, there's going to be people deported, and they should be deported. And do you know why they should be deported? Because that's the law. And if Democrats and establishment Republicans and all of their media partners in Washington, D.C. don't want those people deported, then maybe they should change the law. Why don't they change that law? Why do they just rely on whoever happens to be the president? And they've been doing it for 20 years since Bill Clinton. Why do they continue to just expect whoever becomes the president to ignore that law instead of putting their money where their mouth is and actually writing a new law? You don't want people who came into this country illegally to be deported, then you should change the law that currently says the people who come into this country illegally should be deported. That sounds simple, doesn't it?
Who are humanitarian activists and others who are worried about these deportations, saying families are going to be separated, people are going to be put in tents and in terrible conditions. They have real concerns about the way you plan to actually mete out those things you're planning to do.
Yeah, so this term is something you're going to hear a lot in the next couple of months, the next couple of years, Shannon. Family separation. I think it's important. That's a euphemism. That is a dishonest term to hide behind the fact that Joe Biden has not done border enforcement. If you say, for example, in the United States, we have a guy who's convicted of a violent crime and has to go to prison, we want that guy to go to prison. But yes, it does mean that that guy is going to be separated from his family. That is the consequence of committing violence upon your fellow citizens. If you come into this country illegally, you need to go back home. You need to have basic law enforcement. And what the Democrats are going to do is they're going to hide behind this. They're going to say that this is all about compassion for families.
Yeah, good for you, JD Vance. Well done. And by the way, nice lilac tie. Can we bring lilac back? I've been personally trying to bring lilac back as much as possible here in Washington, and it's good to know that I have a partner in this endeavor. Family separation, get ready for it. It's all you're going to hear. What it means is people come to this country illegally, they have a kid, now it turns out they've broken the law further, they should be deported, but oh, they have a child here, and the child is a natural-born citizen, so you should allow this person to stay. No. Number one, if you don't want to be separated from your children, then don't break our laws and come into a country where you are violating the law and could potentially be deported. And number two, don't further break our laws that put you at the top of the list to be deported because you're an illegal alien criminal. All right. That's number one. That's number two. And if I may, number three, he makes the perfect point here. The fact that anybody in this country who breaks the law and goes to jail immediately by definition is separated from their families. And we're okay with that. Why are we only opposed to it if it happens to be someone who's also in the country illegally from a foreign nation, not even American citizen? And if I may, Vice President-elect Vance, because he's very good at this and he certainly doesn't need my help, but we should probably also add one more rejoinder. Why is it for the last 4 years, nobody was concerned about the family separation that ended up with hundreds of thousands of children being lost in the system and, for all we know, handed over to drug traffickers and human smugglers and pimps and God knows what? We have children in this country that have been separated from their families that the Biden administration gave the A-OK to and handed them over to the worst elements of society. And we have no idea where they are. At least with this family separation that they're so concerned about, we at least know where the children are. They're back with their parents and going back to their parents' home country if they don't stay here with others' guardianship. All right, moving on. The question of Greenland came up. Everybody's favorite question, Greenland. What are we going to do about Greenland?
What's the deal with Greenland and the Panama Canal? Are we using or considering use of military force in any of those situations?
No, look, we don't have to use military force, Shane.
Hold on, and I got to stop this because this is a textbook example of what the mainstream corporate legacy propagandists who call themselves journalists do. Last week, Donald Trump is having a press conference, a freewheeling press conference where he takes questions from everybody, something that Joe Biden basically has done, what, twice, I think? Even then, I don't think he's done it at all as president of the United States. Frankly, every single press conference he's done, he hasn't taken questions from everybody. It's all scripted and everyone's pre-screened. Trump is taking questions, and he started with a reporter from the New York Times. And the reporter from the New York Times, it's not like Trump, wrote a speech and delivered these remarks to the world saying, just so you know, we're going to take Greenland and Panama, and if we have to use military force, we will. He didn't say that. He got asked by a New York Times reporter, will you today rule out using military force for the Panama Canal and Greenland? Now, first of all, Trump should have said, let's separate those two issues, okay? Because they're very different situations, the Panama Canal and Greenland. Secondly, a president should never rule out using military force for any international strategic military endeavor, because when you rule something out, you're stuck. And a president, and certainly a president-elect, should not box himself in any way whatsoever if military force is going to be necessary, number two. Number three, specific to the Panama Canal, let me tell you something. We built that thing. We lost tens of thousands of American lives building that thing. We built that because we needed it for our economic and national security interests. We use the Panama Canal on a regular basis to transport our Navy vessels from the East Coast to the West Coast and to escort our allies' vessels from the East Coast to the West Coast. And now China is down there. And the only reason that we're talking about Panama Canal right now is because Jimmy Carter gave it away for $1. And now the Chinese have their claws into that Panama Canal. If they take over the Panama Canal or in some way infringe on our ability to move our military vessels from the East Coast to the West Coast at any given time, you better believe it is incumbent on whoever the president is to threaten and even use military force if necessary to make sure that our military can move unencumbered from our West Coast to our East Coast. Period. End of discussion. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But the only reason that Donald Trump didn't rule it out is because this stupid New York Times reporter decided to inject this into the narrative. So the question, will you rule it out? Well, that's a stupid question, and I won't even address it. Next question. But instead, Donald Trump did what Donald Trump does, which is, no, I'm not going to rule that out. And now everyone, oh my gosh, he's threatening to use military force. No, he didn't threaten to use military force. He refused to rule out using military force, which is a very different thing. So now we go back to how this narrative is growing and ballooning.
Using or considering use of military force in any of those situations?
No, look, we don't have to use military force, Shannon. The thing that people always ignore is we already have troops in Greenland. Mm-hmm. Greenland is really important for America strategically. It has a lot of great natural resources. My friend Donald Trump Jr. was there a couple of days ago, and you know what they told him? They want to be empowered to develop. The people of Greenland want to be empowered to develop the resources there. We also need to make sure that Greenland is properly cared for from an American security perspective. And frankly, the current leadership, the Danish government has not done a good enough job of securing Greenland. I think there actually is a real opportunity here for us to take leadership to protect America's security, to ensure that those incredible natural resources are developed. And that's what Donald Trump is good at. He's good at making deals, and I think there's a deal to be made in Greenland.
Okay.
Yep, there you go. And he's not wrong about that. In fact, all indication from the people of Greenland and the Prime Minister of Greenland, as we've mentioned on this program, is that they want independence. They've been asking for independence independence from Denmark, and they are more than willing to discuss the possibility of some sort of strategic alliance with the United States of America, which, by the way, makes more sense. Greenland is part of North America, not part of Europe. But for all of you who want to, be in the colonial past and think that the monarch and kingdom of Denmark is in some way legitimately the owners of some landmass over here in North America, well, go right ahead. Next, you're telling me the King of England has some sort of alliance with Canada. Come on, give me a break. Oh, wait a second. Yeah, that's another story for another time. Thank you. That's very well said by Mr. Vance. You notice he did not bring up the issue of the Panama Canal at all in that question of military force, and that's because that's very serious, and that continues to bubble. I mean, Greenland is serious too, but that Panama Canal issue, as I just laid out, must be addressed, and it's going to be addressed very quickly. All right, now, this question and answer having to do with pardons for the January 6th prisoners came up, and it's gotten a lot of buzz, and we're going to talk about it here. But before we even get to it, let me just point out that the current president of the United States, whatever his name is, or whoever is making decisions for him, just commuted death penalty sentences for 40 of the 43 hardened, convicted rapists and mass murderers sitting on the federal death watch right now. They've all been on death row waiting for the capital punishment to be administered to them. And he gave them all basically a blanket commutation. He also gave his own son a blanket pardon for 10 years worth of criminal behavior. Why this hasn't gotten a little bit more widespread scrutiny and angst, I'll never know, except for the fact that the media in this town act as propagandists for Joe Biden. But now suddenly a potential pardon for people who were arrested and convicted for entering a door that a police officer was holding open on January 6th. Suddenly that is the most controversial idea on the planet when it comes to pardons and commutations. So here's the question and answer that now everyone's buzzing about.
President Trump says there's a process. Where is the line drawn on who will and wouldn't be considered for a pardon?
I think it's very simple. Look, if you protested peacefully on January the 6th and you've had Merrick Garland's Department of Justice treat you like a gang member, you should be pardoned. If you committed violence on that day, obviously you shouldn't be pardoned. And there's a little bit of a gray area there, but we're very much committed to seeing the equal administration of law. And there are a lot of people, we think, in the wake of January the 6th who were prosecuted unfairly. We need to rectify that.
All right. Now, a couple of things here that need to be pointed out because everyone's freaking out. It's like, wait a minute, you're not going to give a blanket pardon to everybody? Listen, this is a very reasoned response. If you did commit violence, if there is video of you committing violence against a police officer or defacing and vandalizing and breaking windows of the Capitol building, maybe you shouldn't get an immediate blanket pardon. Maybe you get a commutation. Maybe they're mitigating circumstances. Now, a lot of people are looking at this and saying, oh, hell no. We know that there were FBI resources involved here. There were informants. That should be investigated to see if they actually set this thing up and egged it on. If they're responsible for that violence or if they're responsible for encouraging people to commit that violence. We don't know that. They should get a retrial. That's fine. Listen. He just said specifically that all of this needs to be looked at, especially if you did create violence. Watch his answer one more time, specific to people who were guilty and convicted of committing violent acts that day.
That day, obviously you shouldn't be pardoned. And there's a little bit of a gray area there, but we're very much committed to seeing the equal administration of law. And there are a lot of people, we think, in the wake of January the 6th who were prosecuted unfairly. We need to rectify that.
There's gray area there, and we need to look at each individual case. And there were some that were prosecuted unfairly. And by the way, that does include people who committed violent acts. That doesn't mean if you were prosecuted unfairly, you probably will get a pardon. If you weren't prosecuted unfairly, but maybe you got a draconian sentence because you were talked into it and intimidated by it, maybe you'll get a commutation. Everybody chill out. But there were a lot of negative reactions to J.D. Vance. So J.D. Vance, being the fine communicator and user of social media that he is, he addressed it specifically. But you'll see, I want you to look at what he's responding to. The Hodge twins here with a video. Video gets released of cops shooting innocent J6 protesters, and J.D. Vance goes on Fox News and tells the world that only nonviolent protesters should get pardoned. Better rethink what you said, J.D. Okay, this is footage from that day where the police were using rubber bullets shooting people, and they say, well, listen, you got shot by a rubber bullet with a cop, and you reacted to defend yourself violently. You should get a pardon too. Well, maybe. but maybe not. And here's what J.D. Vance said to that. First of all, I donated to the J6 political prisoner fund and got roasted for it during my Senate race. I've been defending these guys for years. Second, there were federal informants in the crowd. Do they get a pardon? I don't think so. The president saying he'll look at each case and me saying the same is not some walk back. I assure you, we care about people unjustly locked up. Yes, that includes people provoked, and it includes people who got a garbage trial. So there you go. Everybody chill. Everybody chill big time. I think that's important as this continues to play out. And unlike Joe Biden, each individual case will be looked at properly and appropriately and dealt with properly and appropriately. And I think that that's the perfect answer that J.D. Vance just delivered. It is. And also one other thing for everybody screaming about it. Trump can't do that. Trump can't do that. Trump can't do that. Trump literally said this is what he was going to do during every rally during the build up to the election day. There's no surprise here. There's no secret that Trump planned on giving pardons, as many pardons as possible, to people who got caught up in January 6th. The American people knew that, and the American people voted for it. So maybe, just maybe, we should take that into consideration too. So that evil Batman villain Gavin Newsom is in the news. He is, of course, Governor Hair Gel, the governor of California, and his policies from top to bottom have been the direct responsible factor in why so many people lost their homes and firefighters were unable to fight the wildfires in California. That's my opinion, and it's absolutely backed up by the facts. And for everybody who might want to go out and say, oh, but it's global warming, let me just explain something to you. Even if you believe that global warming did increase the rainfall over the last couple of years, which increased the kind of undergrowth that was grown in the hills of California and the hillsides and the forests of California, and then the recent drought and arid conditions caused all of that growth to dry up, thus becoming fuel for the fires. Okay, if you believe that climate change part of what may have been a contributing factor to the fires that we see right now, that doesn't absolve you from your basic civic responsibility to make sure that firefighters are equipped to fight the fire that may come as a result of global warming, right? This whole idea of, oh, well, it's global warming. Well, that doesn't mean that you don't have to be ready to fight a fire caused by it. If you believe in global warming and you believe that global warming is going to bring us more forest fires, then it's even more incumbent on you to make sure that the state and the county and the city are prepared to fight those fires. The fact that you're so married to this religion of global warming is actually an indictment of your lack of preparedness. I mean, it's like I'm sitting there in California, I'm looking at these fires, I'm thinking, hold on, Gavin Newsom is like a true believer. He's the Pope of climate change. So if you're such a true believer in climate change, why in the hell did you not double the firefighting force? Why didn't you double the number of planes to put out these fires? Why didn't you put an army of people to clear all that undergrowth and brush so it wouldn't catch on fire if you really believe in climate change? But see, the fact is they don't really believe in climate change. They believe in having climate change as a political issue to raise money on, to run on, and to beat up their political opponents with. That's what they believe in climate change. Let me put it another way. If an arsonist burns down a building, it's not good enough for you to come back after the fact, knowing that there was no water to put out that building that the arsonist burnt down, and that you cut the budget of the fire departments so that they couldn't put out the fire that the arson set, and all of these other factors that you did that prevented that fire from being put out. It's not good enough for you to stand there in front of the cameras and saying, hey, what can we do? There was an arsonist. No, you're still responsible for putting out the fires. That's what Gavin Newsom is facing right now. And I think he's facing an existential threat to his political ambitions of being president of the United States. With that, I want you to go back in time for a minute, because there was a time when Gavin Newsom was the lieutenant governor of California, and he was already trying to boost his national profile. He was already trying to not only have his eyes set on Sacramento as the governor of California, but eventually the president of the United States. And then he ran into a buzzsaw. He ran into a buzzsaw known as Adam Carolla on the Adam Carolla podcast in its early days of 2013. And this exchange, this interview, I don't know what Gavin Newsom was thinking. I guess he heard, oh, Adam Carolla, well, he's a Hollywood guy. He's going to be fine. No, watch this exchange about social welfare programs and about the liberal mindset when it comes to the state of California and how you go about actually running a government. And it's a beautiful thing.
Half of African Americans in the state of California, roughly half of Latino families, have no access to a checking account or an ATM. Things we take for granted. They don't have a checking account.
What's wrong with them?
And well, because they don't have the resources to sock those things away.
Why do we have them?
A lot of different reasons, but roughly half those families don't. And where do they
Why
end
do
up?
Armenians have them?
But where they end up is in check cashing places.
But I want to
and
know
these
why
payday
those
lenders
groups,
taking
why
advantage.
those two groups don't have access.
Well, a lot of it just happens to be that we can
So
talk
they're
about.
flawed?
No, they're hardly flawed, but they're struggling.
Genetically
Folks are making
flawed.
their word. Hardly, not absolutely.
But okay,
not.
do
Absolutely not.
Asians have this problem?
I mean, a lot of communities have. A lot of whites have these problems.
Oh,
but
so
I just,
that's not just black and Hispanic.
no, but
But
I'm
why did you
giving
bring
you
up black and Hispanic?
because the magnitude is ominous.
But why so many of them?
It just happens to be the
Just
magnitude.
that's the way God planned it?
Not at all.
Well,
It
what
just-
happened to them?
There are a lot of issues, and that the communities are struggling. A lot
Why are
of new
they
immigrants.
struggling?
A lot of different reasons. Lack of
Hispanics have been
opportunity.
here. Blacks have been here
difficulties.
longer than we've been here.
Well, we can surmise.
What
all
about
that.
Asians? They were put in internment camps.
Yeah, we in fact it all initiated out of San Francisco. And
All
the
right.
Chinese Exclusion Act came out
So
of
are they
progressive
the
San
check cash?
Francisco.
Are they the check cash?
a lot of Asians certainly do.
Oh, so why don't you conclude
Because
them?
the only reason why is the magnitude of
There's
the
so
problem.
many more.
The magnitude in percentage.
But there's no way to figure out how that happened.
We could talk about. You know what I'm dealing with? I don't want to have a sociological debate. I
Sure,
want
why
to deal
would
with
you? You'd have, no,
here's why.
Why would you want to do that? Because the person from the Times wouldn't write good things about
Oh,
you if
God,
you did that.
No, that's not the case because I
You
want
don't
to deal
wanna
with
get into
reality.
that.
No.
You want to deal with reality.
I want to
can
deal
tell
with
you
the
what
reality of
reality
people
is.
that are struggling. People are suffering. I want to deal with the problems in
Why
a
are
pragmatic
they
way.
struggling
I don't
and
want an
suffering?
idea. We can hold hands and surmise about all these
Why
underlying
are they?
reasons.
I don't want to do that.
but
I want to know
wanna
why
focus
they're
on the
struggling.
challenge.
Why are they struggling?
A lot of folks are struggling because they can't find
Why
jobs.
blacks and
because
Hispanics?
they're working.
Why blacks and Hispanics?
Across the board, all
Why?
socioeconomic.
Okay, so everybody. is.
Everybody's struggling.
So Asians are suffering just as much as blacks.
The face of welfare is not an African American family.
It's Asian, Jewish, it's all of them.
Caucasian. It's a
Okay,
lot of
so
folks
we're all
in society.
struggling.
A lot of folks are struggling.
Okay.
Oh my God. I honestly, I am almost erotically attracted to an interview like this, not to Carolla himself, but just to see somebody like Gavin Newsom called out on his fundamental bullshit like that is so glorious and so perfect. And I didn't want to interrupt it, but now I'm going to let it run one more time and we're going to break it down a little bit because everything about this is why Adam Carolla is so good at interviewing people. And also, by the way, why people like Gavin Newsom will never go on Adam Carolla's show again. Sadly. And by the way, kudos to, I want to give Gavin Newsom as much credit as possible here. I'm impressed that he put the headphones on, considering the hair gel and the perfect coif. And I'll never take that away from this man. He has an amazing head of hair. But the fact that he was, literally without any head. Although, if you notice, let's expand that real fast. If we could, you'll notice he put the headphones. I'm a trained professional. I'm a radio broadcaster. He put the headphones way in the back of his head. Do you see that? Do you see how they're way in the back on the crown? He did not want to mess up like right here, the top of his head. Right, where the hair really looks good on camera. All right. So this is back in the early dark ages of podcasting and streaming, where they just had the one fixed camera in the studio, right? In 2013. Boy, 12 years ago. Let's start again, where right at the very beginning of Gavin Newsom's statement, he's already caught off guard. And why? Well, watch.
Half of African Americans in the state of California, roughly half of Latino families, have no access to a checking account or an ATM, things we take for granted. They don't have a check.
What's wrong with them?
And what?
Now, right there, he's used to saying these things. Half of African Americans and nearly half of Latinos don't have access to it. By the way, what does that mean, access to a checking account? Access to a checking account? You mean you go to a bank to open a checking account and they refuse you? By the way, he won't answer the fundamental question. Why is that with Latinos? Because Latinos don't have a US ID to be able to open that bank account, or they have a stolen ID because of identity theft. And as soon as they open that bank account or that checking account, it'll be seen that they're making money under the table in this country, or they're using somebody else's identity. That's why they don't. It's not that they don't have access, they choose not to. But we'll set that aside for a minute. He's so used to saying this bromide to somebody on television or radio or a newspaper reporter. Half of African Americans don't have access to a checking account, and we got to do something about that. And he's just used to saying that unchallenged. And nobody says, well, wait a minute, why don't we why don't we fix the root cause here? Because that's terrible. So instead of actually, your big government program that might solve that, why don't we figure out what the fundamental root cause? Remember how everyone wants to get to root causes? Nobody wants to get to root causes here. Why is that the case? Why is it? And Adam Carolla challenges the premise here. All right. And it goes in two different directions, which is beautiful. It's like when we talk about voter ID, and the left always, they like pat themselves on the back. I think this argument is gone now. The vast majority of American people think that we should have voter ID for voting, but they constantly said this thing, well, it's racist because Black people have a harder time getting a photo ID. And it's like, okay, I got an idea. Let's bring, if that's true, which by the way, I don't think is true, but if it's true that for some reason Black people are incapable of getting an ID, how about this? Instead of degrading our voting system to accommodate those Black individuals who you claim can't get a photo ID, I got a better idea. How about we bring those people into our society? How about we let them be on planes and open bank accounts and cash checks and go into government buildings and all of the other fundamental, drive a car, for instance, all of the things that you can't do in this society unless you have a photo ID, instead of actually using this as an excuse so you can continue your fraudulent voter practices and hide behind the fig leaf of, oh, it's racist because Black people can't get a photo ID. I got a better idea. How about we elevate all of those people who in this country can't get a photo ID and bring them into normal functioning society and get them a photo ID? And they have no idea. They have no answer to that, actually, because they would much rather use it as an excuse for their own political power and their fraudulent election systems. Okay, so he's not used to be challenged on this at all, right?
But what? Well, because they don't have the resources to sock those things away.
Why do we have them?
What does that mean? So why don't they have a bank account? Oh, because they don't have the resources to sock those things away. Number one, what does that mean? And number two, who here, when they were 8 years old, did not have their father, their mother, or their grandfather open up a little savings account so that you could put your allowance just to teach you how to save money? Now, maybe you didn't. Maybe times have changed, but I know I'm a Gen Xer. That's what I did when I was a little kid. And you can put $1 away a week at a time. If you don't need resources to open a bank account and start establishing that sort of thing. Number two, but then Adam Carolla says, well, how come it's just half of Black people and nearly half of Latino people? How come we have those resources and other people don't? And again, he doesn't know how to answer this question.
A lot of different reasons, but roughly half those families don't. Where do they
Why
end
do
up?
Armenians have them?
But where they end up is in check cashing places.
But I want to
and
know
these
why
payday
those
lenders
groups,
taking
why
advantage.
those two groups don't have access.
Well, there are a lot of. It just happens to be that we can
So
talk
they're
about.
flawed?
No, they're hardly flawed, but they're struggling.
Genetically
Folks are making
flawed.
their word. Hardly, not absolutely.
But okay,
not.
but do
Absolutely not.
Asians have this problem?
I mean, a lot of communities have. A lot of whites have these problems.
Oh,
but
so
I just,
that's not just Black and Hispanic.
no, but
But
I'm
why did you
giving
bring up Black and Hispanic?
because the magnitude is ominous.
But why so many of them?
It just happens to be.
And spoiler alert, as we've already seen this, he has no answer to it. It's such a glorious clip, and I'm so glad we were able to share it with you. I remember when it first happened, and it was fantastic. It was incredible. And it shows you exactly who Gavin Newsom is. He hasn't changed, not one bit, except he's actually, frankly, better at lying. That's what's so scary about this guy, is that he can lie to you with a smile on his face. He knows he's lying. The reporters know that he's lying, and they're all just so magnificently mesmerized by his ability to lie. He literally has no shame, which brings us to this clip where he is trying to manage. Well, I don't know what he's trying to do other than a photo op there. He's on a street in the Palisades or Altadena where the wildfires are. And then this woman, a neighbor, saw him there and went after him. And honestly, I think this clip right now, listen, that clip we just saw is brilliant, but sadly it did not end his political career. It should have. This one might. Listen, he's the governor of California. Good for you. This clip right here may be the reason why this is the end of Gavin Newsom's political career and he won't hold elected office again.
Governor, you got a second? Governor, I live here, Governor. That was my daughter's school, Governor. Please tell me what you're going to do. I'm not going to hurt him, I promise.
I'm literally talking to the president right now to specifically answer the question of what we can do for you and your daughter.
Okay, now, first of all, jackass, take the sunglasses off. For God's sake, what are you doing with the Ray-Bans? You're talking to a human being, this person who has just lost their home and their daughter's school, and you're keeping the Ray-Bans on because you look cool. So right there, you got a problem. But did you hear what he said? I am literally talking to the president of the United States right now. Literally. He used the word Literally. I am literally, and he's pointing at his cell phone, right? I'm literally talking to the president of the United States. So this is going to be dramatic. All right, let's see what happens next. Wow, the president's on the phone right when this woman needs help. This is great.
Can I hear it? Can I hear your call? Because I don't believe it.
I'm sorry. There's literally, I've tried 5 times. That's why I'm walking around to make the
Why
call.
is the president not taking your call?
Because it's not going through.
So it starts with, I'm literally talking to the president right now. Leave me alone, crazy woman. But please vote for me in November. And then she says, oh, great. Can I listen? Because I'd like to know what you guys are going to do. And he goes, yeah, the call won't go through. I have no signal here. I'm actually. So apparently you're not literally talking to the president. And see, it's funny. This clip goes on. Let's watch a little bit more of it because I want to make one final point.
Why?
I have to get cell service.
So let's get it. Let's get it. I want to be here when you call the president.
I appreciate it. I'm doing that right now. And it's to immediately get reimbursements, individual assistance, and to help you. I'm devastated for you. I'm so sorry, especially for your daughter. I have 4 kids. Losing
Everyone who went to school there, they lost their homes. They lost 2 homes because they were living in one and building another. Governor, please tell me, what are you going to do with the president right now?
We're getting the resources to help rebuild.
Why was there no water in the hydrants, Governor?
That's all literally.
Is it going to be different next time?
It has to be. Has to be. Of course.
What are you going to do?
I need you to, is it going to be different this next time? And he says it has to be. I want you to know that this, I believe, is the 3rd or 4th devastating wildfire season that Gavin Newsom has overseen during this. Who's calling me? Uh-oh. What's happening here?
Looks like we lost your video, Larry.
You lost my video?
Yeah.
All right, let's try that again. There we go. I was wondering what was happening there. Sorry about that. I thought somebody was like calling me on Skype or something. That is bizarre. This is the 3rd or 4th wildfire that he has overseen, devastating wildfire. And he says, oh, it has to be different next time. Why wasn't it different this time? The question that she asked, why was there no water in the reservoir? Yeah, we're trying to get to the bottom of that. You're governor. You find out that there was no water in the reservoir and there was no water in the hydrants for the firefighters. So those homes just burned down. Why is that not? It's been a week now. Why is that not the only question you've been asking? And why do you still not have an answer to that? And how hard can that answer be? And he's just BSing. He's just trying to get this woman away from him. That's why he said, I'm literally talking to the president right now. And of course he's not. And this whole fake Alec Baldwin growly whisper voice that he uses is bizarre and creepy and frankly a show. He's a made for Hollywood candidate. He's a made for Hollywood governor. And this is what happens when the crack show, when you don't actually run on the ability to do anything and run anything, but you just want the job because it's the next step in your career ladder. And you just like the fact that you get the popular, oh, I'm on TV, I get to go to Lakers games, and I'm, the governor of the biggest state in the union. And let's face it, I'm never challenged because it's one party rule. So I'm just going to keep looking good and smiling my pearly whites. And the media in that state and nationwide really lets him get away with that. But let me tell you something about Gavin Newsom. And this is why I think this clip right here is the end of his political career. This exposes not just what a creepy dude he is and how unfeeling he is and how incompetent he is and what a liar he is, but it also, frankly, proves what a bad politician he is. You see, if this were Bill Clinton in the middle of a natural disaster and this woman comes running up distraught like this, he would have taken off the sunglasses. He would have given the phone to an aide. He would have looked that person in the eye. Maybe even a tear would have come down his cheek as he listened to her or pretended to listen to her. He would bit his lip, and after she let it all out, he would have given her a hug and been there and said, I understand, and this is wrong, and we're going to do whatever we can. Now, if it were Bill Clinton, he's probably also copping a feel while he gives her a hug, because there's always something going on there. But that's what he would have done. Joe Biden, by the way, for all his faults, also would have been able to put that show on as well. Maybe even Barack Obama. I don't know about he's a little cold and distant. This guy, the fact that he doesn't have those political instincts to stop, with the theatrics and the growly voice and the I'm literally talking to the president, leave me alone. And all, the fact that he couldn't understand the moment in the middle of these fires, standing on that street, take off his glasses and just be a human being. I think this is it for him. I really do. He couldn't do it. He couldn't bring himself to do it because, in fact, I believe, you can fact check me on this, I believe Gavin Newsom is, in fact, a demon and inherently evil. But his hair does look fantastic. I mean, again, I do want to point out, to give credit where it's due, the hair, the sunglasses, the wardrobe. I mean, that's A plus. He's got that down. The whole being a human being thing, the whole actually being a competent governor and running a state and being there when they most need help. Yeah, that part needs a little work. You remember Michael Cohen? He used to be President Trump's lawyer. President Trump sort of, put him in certain positions and dealt with some personal business work. Never gave him a job in the White House. Michael Cohen's still bitter about that. And then Michael Cohen turned on Donald Trump, became a witness in the whole Stormy Daniels thing. And now on Friday, as you know, Donald Trump was sort of sentenced on the Stormy Daniels things, but of course there was no punishment. I guess the sentencing was just so liberals in the media could say, he's a convicted felon. He's officially a convicted felon. By the way, find out how all of those reporters who were calling Donald Trump over and over again a convicted felon, find out how they described the former mayor of Washington, D.C., Marion Barry, who was literally thrown in jail for dealing with crack and a prostitute. Well, I don't think it was a prostitute. I'm not sure. It could have been an ex-girlfriend. Anyway, find out how they called Marion Barry. I'm pretty sure they went to the unveiling of his statue in Washington, D.C. Michael Cohen appeared on MSNBC this weekend to lament the fact that Donald Trump will not be going to jail and, in fact, will going back to the White House. And he had one message for the current occupant of 1600 Pennsylvania. Please pardon me.
Regarding the pardon, yeah, I put in the application for a presidential pardon because I believe that Joe Biden has the same responsibility to me that he had to his own son. And I would expect that the same exact pardon that he gave his son has to go to me and to anybody else that's on that enemies list, whether they want it or not. Because I assure you, solitary confinement where I did 51 days sucks.
Michael Cohen, I believe wholeheartedly that the solitary confinement was just a terrible experience for you. And I think your point about the enemies, the proverbial enemies list, right, is a good one. I wonder, have you heard anything back from the administration? It is my understanding that two things. The administration, one, is not going to give a pardon to anybody that doesn't want one. So folks who have prominently gone out and said, I do not want a pardon, the president is not going to issue a pardon to people that don't want one. But two,
they'll change their mind when they're sitting behind closed doors. That I can assure you, they're going to kick themselves in the backside for that one.
I think hindsight will always be 20/20. I guess my question is, have you heard from the Biden administration? And I am struck by your comparing yourself and Hunter Biden. And I wonder if, well, I'm going to just tell you, Michael Cohen, we're on national TV, we have a conversation. I don't necessarily think that's your best way to go get a pardon. I mean, Hunter Biden is the president's last surviving son. But your other point, why I do think is a strong one.
I'm somebody's son also, by the way.
Agreed. You are somebody's son. But I mean, to be very clear, you're not the president's son.
All right. So this is this is beautiful on so many levels. First of all, this sad sack of a moron going on MSNBC saying, please pardon me, Joe Biden. After all I did for you, it's the least you could do for me. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. You didn't beat him in the election. I did everything I was supposed to do. I testified against him. I got you to call him a convicted felon. Is it my fault you stepped away? Is it my fault Kamala Harris couldn't win? Please pardon me. It's so Sopranos, this stuff. So there's first this guy begging for a pardon. Then you got Simone Sanders, who, by the way, is a former spokesperson for Bernie Sanders and then spokesperson for Kamala Harris, and now a journalist on MSNBC. But it's amazing how that works, isn't it? She's up there saying, dude, sorry to tell you this, but you're not Hunter Biden, okay? You're not the president's son, so you're not going to get a pardon. And Cohen's like, well, I'm somebody's son. What makes me different? And this is my favorite part of the clip, where Simone Sanders admits for all the world that Hunter Biden was treated special because he happens to be born to the right, loser, horrible man, Joe Biden. You see, no. Those pardons only go to special privileged people, Michael Cohen. You don't get a pardon because you're not Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden, I'm thinking, committed way more serious crimes than Michael Cohen ever did. He got a pardon for one reason and one reason only, because of Biden privilege, because he was Joe Biden's son. And this is the one angle that Michael Cohen could pull here. The other reason why Hunter Biden got the pardon is because if he were convicted, he could bring the big guy down with him. And maybe Michael Cohen might want to play that card. Hey, Joe, I got some dirt on you too, buddy. You might want to throw one of those pardons my way. Our buddy Maze over there on the X, the Everything app platform, put together a beautiful How It Started and How's It Going. Here's a previous appearance by Michael Cohen, wearing the same game show host sport jacket, by the way, whenever it was.
He's not 100% sure what's actually going on, and that's the part that's really scaring him the most. Nobody's telling him the truth. So, Donald, if you're watching, here's the truth. The truth is you're in trouble. And I believe that Judge Merchan, who I've said to several people today, I find him very Solomonian. He's really very even-keeled. He's incredibly judicious and respectful of the process, something Donald is not. I believe that he will make the right decision, and the right decision will be not just for Donald, but really for respect. Either there's accountability, or they should have dismissed the case as the motion requested, put forth by Todd Blanche earlier. I believe that if there's no accountability, there's no deterrence. And if there's no deterrence, no accountability, what's the point to have the case anyway, so that we could all just turn around and refer to him now as the felon president? How about make it a conditional discharge? And the condition would be within the next 72 hours, you have to go work in a soup kitchen, or come to New York where he has that roadway on the West Side Highway, put on a red jumpsuit and pick up some garbage, just so that there's some accountability, some responsibility. I did 6 years, 3 years of incarceration and the 3 years of supervised release without a single second, not a minute, not an hour, not a day off of my sentence. And he doesn't even get a slap on the wrist.
He doesn't seem very happy with the Solomonian Judge Merchan, although I think the word he was looking for was Solomon-esque. I don't think Solomonian is a thing. But hey, when you're from New York, you can come up with whatever woods you want. Right, Michael Cohen? How's that working out for you? That is a beautiful thing. Look at that poor sad sack. You know what? I prefer it when Michael Cohen is this Michael Cohen. I like the Michael Cohen who goes on TikTok and gets trolled by thousands of people. The only reason why we decided to do a segment on Michael Cohen begging Joe Biden for a pardon in the final days of the Biden presidency is so that we can revisit this glorious, glorious moment of our lives.
No problem. Wow. Genius you are. Can we stop with that? I appreciate it. I don't like the stupid turkeys. All right. Let's just knock that stupid shit off, please. All right. I did. I said I was leaving. And then the following day, get that through your dumb heads. The following day, I turned around and I said that there's no chance in the world that I'm leaving my country. Thank you very much. All right. I'm not leaving anyway. You leave. This is my country. And I have every right, every single right within which to turn around when we stop so we can. All right. 2 seconds. I'm going to end up blocking this idiot.
This is the only way that Michael Cohen should be seen in anybody's eyes. In fact, MSNBC should do this. While he's on the air, they should just... What are they doing putting him on the air anyway? What is wrong with MSNBC? That they're even resorting to having Michael Cohen on the air. I need you to tell me what your favorite one is. Is it the... what would you call this? Like this is like a Silverado, Val Kilmer, Wyatt Earp kind of Michael Cohen. Or I frankly like the Elvis Michael Cohen with the 50s glasses. But then, of course, we've got the turkey. I mean, the turkey Michael Cohen is classic. That's like OG classic Michael Cohen. What was the other one we had? I think that was pretty much it, wasn't it? Hey God, we had lots of the turkey. Oh, this. What about the green laser eye Michael Cohen? I don't know. That's actually kind of cool. I prefer the ones that fully ridicule him. So, I guess in that case, the turkey Michael Cohen is. But let us know in the chat if you don't mind, because we need to know. We need a vote here on which the best Michael Cohen is. You know which Michael Cohen I like? I like the Michael Cohen who is probably, in fact, going to leave the country because he's not going to get the pardon. He was used. They used you, Michael. They used you. They loved you. This is your last time on MSNBC too. I promise you. There's no use for you anymore. You're done. It's sad, but you can go back to TikTok and guess what? You'll be begging them to put the turkey on your face so that you can have some relevance. And that's a great thing. And I'm happy for you. You're going to be great. Good luck with your future. Good luck with your life. The rest of us, well, the rest of us 1 week from today will be enjoying the beginning of the 47th president of the United States, second term, interrupted, albeit for 4 years, but back bigger and stronger than ever. Trump 2.0 begins right here next week. We can't wait. Michael Cohen, sayonara. All right. That is it. Boy, we had a variety of topics today, didn't we? But it was fun. Angela, $2 for the Big Mac Fund. We really appreciate that super chat. Libs losing their mind still say DJT won't be president. Are they still saying that even after January 6th? I missed that. Who's saying Trump's not going to be president? Another $2 super chat from Angela says the November 5 mandate was for mass deportation, 7 days to go. Yeah, it's pretty simple. This whole idea, but you can't do mass deportations. He literally said mass deportations. They'll start with the criminals. But and a funny thing, eventually people will be deporting themselves because laws are going to be enforced. They're not going to get their benefits. They're not going to get jobs. Angela, one more super chat, $5. One last thing today. Lakin, Riley, Rachel Moore, yes, Jocelyn, Nungary et al. Pretty sure they didn't want family separation. No pardon either. Ooh, that's a very powerful argument, especially as we see the Lakin-Riley Act make its way through the Senate. Isn't it amazing that Chuck Schumer gets his first opportunity as minority leader to block something from the Republican bare majority in the House and the Senate, and actually senators are overwhelmingly Democrats. I think they've got 7 or 9 or maybe even more following John Fetterman to support the Lakin-Riley Act. Donald Trump will actually have a bill on his desk to sign into law, showing that Republicans can actually bring Democrats over for things that are common sense. Beautiful reminder. Thank you, Angela. Dennis Harmon. Wow, $25 super chat. Dennis, you are the man. You know, Dennis is my dad's name, by the way. Thank you for that. Keep it going, Larry. Well done. I really appreciate that, sir. We're doing our best and we're enjoying every minute of it. That is so cool. That's like what, $25 in Biden's America? That's like 2 Big Macs right there. Thank you, big man. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for following us up here today and finding us on our live stream. We'll be back tomorrow. Kevin, anything else I need to know? Why did my camera go out like that? That was creepy.
I have no idea.
I was very disoriented there.
Please like and subscribe. Please like and subscribe.
Okay, please like and subscribe, everybody. And anybody who's watching the live stream right now and already over an hour into it, I'm sure that they're subscribers. But if you're not, please become a subscriber and hit the alert button as well so you can catch all of our extra special live streams. Anything else? I think that's it. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. We'll see you next time. In the meantime, my name is Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry.